All right, let's transition to the other MGEU West series to open up the playoffs, the Virden Oil Capitals and the OCN Blizzard. Benny Walchuk, we'll start with you. The OCN Blizzard are really tough to beat at the Gordon Laughlin Memorial Center. Just take us through what it's like to be a road team in that atmosphere.
Yeah, even at the start of the year, we had a couple of games at the start of the year, and the fans are still. I think it dates back to 20 years ago when they had those great teams, or 25 years ago when they had those great teams. The fans get into it when the crunch time comes. The garbage cans are crashing. They're banging on the stands, and I think just the atmosphere is up there. And I think I've known Doug Johnson for a long time, and when he went into Nipawin, his old team, it was tough to beat him there. They just know the bounces, they know the angles. He kind of puts his defensive structure to the arena he has, and he was very tough to beat in the cage in Nipawin, and he's very tough to beat there. Just kind of defensively, they're smothering defensively. They play that hard nose, especially in their own end defensively, and just they play their style the right way in their home building. So that's what makes them tough to beat on home ice. And they only have they got off to a very good start, had a little bit of a lull in between, and they're kind of picking up their game here last stretch to beat out Virden for home ice. And I think that's going to be crucial here going forward as home ice. So I think that was a big last weekend for OCN and a tough last weekend for Virden to lose home ice, because I think those first two games are going to be definitely very, very crucial.
Absolutely, and it is kind of a tale of two teams that have faced adversity at different times. As you mentioned, OCN kind of went through a lull there middle into the last couple of weeks of the season. Meanwhile, the Virden Oil Capitals have just been steady since December 7th. Their record is immaculate. Darnell, Duff, what has made the Virden Oil Capitals so difficult to beat since that December day?
Well, they've had really good goaltending, whether it's Eric Reed or Owen Larocque between the pipes, and they played a fantastic defensive game. They're a team that just tries to sort of lull you to sleep, and then all of a sudden they're going to transition themselves and move into the offensive zone. They're not a extremely dynamic team. They do have guys like Nolan Chasko, who I believe has one of the better releases in the league. But I think this is just, as you mentioned, a steady team. They get the job done in their own defensive zone, and then they capitalize when other teams are maybe taking a shift off, or even 10 seconds off. The Oil Caps have some speed and they can capitalize, but they sort of sputtered going into the playoffs. I mean, you mentioned that hot record. They were 23-5-1 going into their past two games against Swan Valley since December 12th. If they got 1 point, they would have had home ice advantage in the first round. They lost two straight games against the Stampeders, so they're struggling a little bit in their most recent action. But this is still a really good Oil Capitals team led by the head coach of the year in Tyson Ramsey, but certainly a tough ending for the team. And it's going to be a tough start for the team going to the Gordon Laughlin, where the Blizzard only lost 5 regulation games all season in their own barn.
It's packed, and when those horns get going, it is hard to think, especially as a broadcaster. Kevin, talking about some of the back and forth battles, Virden versus OCN, both these teams have never really lived up to the expectations. OCN's got such a storied history of championships. Meanwhile, Virden has always been that team that you kind of expected to get over the hump, and now they're kind of living up to it. Take us through who kind of has the advantage in your mind.
They're two different types of rosters. I mean, you look at OCN that has Riley Zimmerman, Ashton Paul, Alex Bernauer that put up, I think, over 50 points, 56 points, a couple of them. I think Zimmerman was close to 60 as well. By comparison, they're two different rosters. You look at Tyson Ramsey's squad, and they bring their lunch pail to work every day. And maybe they got a lot out of a little. I know they did get good goaltending from Reed and Larocque as well, but on the other hand, with OCN, they also have Chase Ham, and he's pretty solid as well. Yeah, I've seen him steal games right in front of my own eyes as well. So they have a little bit of a different scoring punch when you look at the top three there in OCN. They can score in bunches too, so it's going to be up to Virden to really control the game, make sure that they're responsible in their own end, and if it gets into a track meet, well, I think it edges towards OCN.
Benny Walchuk, Kevin kind of alluded to it. The big horses maybe are on the OCN side, but there's a bit of a drop-off after those big guns, and a couple of guys have gone quiet at the wrong time. Does OCN have the depth to get through the Virden Oil Capitals in round one?
Yeah, I think they might. I know with Dougie's teams, it's they kind of rely on that one line or maybe depth line. But if they can get strong, if they can play their strong defensive game, I don't think they need much scoring. I know the playoffs, it's a harder time to score. I think that top line will do enough, and I think they can get enough from their depth. And I think just with the defensive structure, and I've watched Chase Ham play the last couple of years in the SJHL, and he can completely steal a game. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I think in order for this OCN Blizzard to be successful in the playoffs, they have to keep that low scoring, 1-2 goal games, maybe 3 total goals in the game. So if they can keep that data, I think if it gets into a track meet, I think it might be even more in a favor of Virden, I think a little bit, just because it seems like Virden would get to Chase Ham, which is going to be what they could need to do to be successful in the series. So I think they got to keep it low scoring for OCN and rely on their netminder and play a good defensive structure. And that's what's going to make them successful.
That's really interesting, as I wanted to bring up with Darnell, given how many close games the Virden Oil Capitals have played. Is it actually a detriment that they've been playing kind of hold on hockey at times, or is it to their advantage, Darnell, because they've been playing playoff style games for a long time and they seem very comfortable in 1-goal games, especially leading?
I think for most teams in the West, it's been playoff hockey for the last couple of months, which makes this first round that more intriguing. I think this is an Oil Capitals team that have enough in their tank to get past OCN in the first round. They have, as mentioned, skilled defensemen, really good, decent goaltending at times, and they have guys who can put the puck in the back of the net. But when I look at OCN, I just see too much there. Chase Ham has been fantastic over his last 3 games, 32 saves, 29 saves, and 31. Alex Bernauer wrapped up the campaign with a hat trick in the first period in their final game against WCC Capo. I mean, I certainly respect everything Tyson Ramsey has done with the Oil Caps. And I mean, not that long ago, it seems that they were in 6th place in the West Division, and now they were fighting, for first place in the West. It didn't happen out for them, and they ended up in 3rd. I respect what he's doing with that program. I think it's certainly their time to make some noise. You mentioned that, over the years, they continue to have good teams, but they don't get over that hump. But I think they're playing behind the 8 ball. Game 1 on Friday night. It's going to be tough going in to the Gordon Laughlin. They have what it takes. I don't know if they're going to be able to get the job done against an OCN team that gets to start on home ice.
And Virden is -3 in the goals against differential, and they have the least amount of goals scored in the top 4 of the West, 182. All 3 other teams are over 200 goals. Kevin Pauls, we'll go to you. This is going to be just a tough, grinded out series in a way where goals are super hard to come by. What are your overall thoughts, and who do you think comes out on top in this series?
I think it boils down to game breakers, honestly, talking about Zimmerman and Bernauer and Paul. I really like watching Paul play. Such a big young man, and he can certainly change the course of a game. And if they stay responsible in the defensive end, and Chase Ham does what you can expect, I think they have the game breakers. I don't know if Virden has, maybe they'll work as a complete unit from top to bottom as far as their lines go, but I think it's going to boil down to the big guns, and I think that's where OCN takes it. I have OCN coming out on top in 6 games.
Out of all the big guns in this series, it's Rubazin that has the most points going head-to-head. He's got 5 goals and 1 assist. Paul for OCN, 4 goals and an assist, and Zimmerman 2 goals against the Virden Oil Capitals throughout the whole year, and one of them was an empty netter. Benny Walchuk, your overall thoughts and a prediction for this one?
Yeah, I think this will be a good series. I know, like you said, 2 different kind of rosters, like Kevin mentioned, which is definitely I agree with. And I think just mentioned with defensive structure, Dougie's been to it. He's won an SJHL championship, and he has got a little bit more experience. And like I said, Tyson's done a great job in Virden. Wins MJHL Coach of the Year. They've been very, very good to get to where they are. But I think the best goaltender is Chase Ham in the series, and I think with the home ice advantage, and I think that OCN plays a much more heavier game, especially on home ice. So I'm going to go with the Blizzard in 5.
Yeah, Eric Reed started 5 out of the 6 games this year against OCN. He's 3-2, 133 saves on 144 shots. Chase Ham 1-1-1, 74 saves on 79 shots. So yeah, goaltending is going to be very interesting to watch. Darnell, Duff, we'll wrap up with you. An overview and a prediction.
Yeah, I think Chase Ham is going to steal the show between the pipes. Bernauer is going to be solid. Zimmerman, Paul, OCN's going to have enough. I think, I see this series ending in 5 games. I think OCN does what they need to do in the first 2 games. They split in Virden and then come home for game 5 and cap it off the Gordon Laughlin. All the respect in the world is mentioned for what Tyson Ramsey and this entire club has done in Virden. I just think OCN is going to get the job done here in 5.
I'm taking Virden in 6, and I think Benny Walchuk will agree with me. It's sometimes when you lose games that matter the most, and those last 2 losses against Swan, I think, are going to put a burr in the saddle of the Virden Oil Capitals, and they're not going to be happy they missed out on home ice, so they're going to steal game 1, and then they're going to just go from there. So I got Virden hanging on winning in 6. Boys, looking forward to this one again in that MGEU West.